Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of FAQ Mondays. I am your host, Fluff. I'm hanging out at my podcasting studio because I had to film something else, and I thought we would do another FAQ Monday because it's been a hot minute, and clearly you guys have some questions. So let's dive into it, shall we? Cloudburst over on my Discord, link down below in the description, asks, hey Fluff, is there any noticeable sonic difference between a piece of gear and its 500 series counterpart? Let's say for this example, it's an 1176, both made by the same company. Great question. I love talking about outboard gear as well. To my ears, the differences are pretty negligible. Are they that different? No. Are they different at all? Yeah. I mean, really it boils down to the size of the transformers, like an 1176, as you so eloquently pointed out for an example. You know, the transformers are going to be a little different and thusly smaller, and that does affect the sound. However, functionally, for me, I have gotten great sounds out of my 1176 and SSLG series in the 500 series as I have in the full-size rack versions. I've never thought, this doesn't sound the same, or this is close enough. No, that's it. To that thought, Elysia, their rack units are 500 series modules mounted in a 1U rack housing. Fun fact. If you took the cover off of the rack housing, it's the 500 module units. They do that so they can have consistency no matter the form factor. And that's pretty rare that a company does that. But yeah, for me, 500 series stuff is awesome, and you don't really sacrificing too much with 500 series stuff. I am so sorry I cannot pronounce your name, but you ask, do you still have your Bernie Custom? If so, how would you compare it to your Gibson Custom Maduro? Thank you so much for your question. I do not have my Bernie anymore. I gifted it to my dear friend Joey Bradford from The Used. He really needed one for his studio down in San Diego that I do work out of not infrequently, and it made sense to have it down there. He's gonna take good care of it. As far as how it compared to my actual, my Gibson Les Paul Custom, the frets on the Bernie were really, really small. That drove me insane. They were really, really small. That's ultimately why I decided to give it to Joey, if I'm honest. Also, the feeling of, the feeling of the Bernie was, the body was very, very thick, and I don't know if it was actually thicker. To the eye, they looked the same, both the Les Paul Custom and the Bernie, but it felt much deeper and much more, I don't know how to describe it. It just felt much more, I don't know, and that's ultimately why I didn't play it. And also, it didn't make sense to me to have multiples of, like, you know, a Les Paul Custom style guitar when, you know, if I'm gonna grab a Les Paul, I'm typically a standard guy. Honestly, I like the standards a lot more than I like the customs, only because that back binding is pretty sharp and it kind of digs into your side a little bit sometimes. I don't know. Personal preference, both great guitars though. Marco Alexander Winter Mikkelsen, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, asks, I recently released 2 of my own songs on Facebook. What is the next step to be heard and seen on social media? Also, can we get a shout out to the situation Glenn Fricker is in with his hospitalized wife? Big hugs from Denmark. Marco, thank you so much for your question. First of all, the next thing you should do with your songs is make content around your songs, promoting your songs. On Instagram, Facebook is also a great start. Threads, Blue Sky, etc., etc. Also consider releasing them via an aggregate distributor, TuneCore, DistroKid, and getting them on Spotify, whereas most people would want to consume their music. You know, Apple Music is another one. Those are great next steps. As far as Glenn Fricker, I just saw what happened literally the day before I filmed this. I am admittedly kind of in my own bubble these days, as far as I'm not on a lot of social media platforms, just kind of bored perusing. I have my select few, but I just saw what happened with Glenn and his lovely wife, whom we've hung out several times. She is incredible. She's very, very nice and lovely. And shout out to Glenn. And he requested that no donations be made and that you just pick a playlist of his and just give his channel traffic. I will link down below in the description if you would like to do that yourself. I definitely have done that. I was setting up here earlier in the podcasting studio and I just let his videos play. I mean, that's really all we can do. Shout out to Glenn, stay strong, my guy. And that's incredibly horrible. All my thoughts are with you. Riley Hurst asks, in your opinion, does tone wood matter? I always get this question. Here's what I think and know about tone wood. Does it affect the way things feel? Yes, of course. Does it affect how vibration is transferred through parts and mating parts, specifically the body and the neck? Yes, absolutely. Does it fundamentally actually change the sound of your strings as picked up by your floating coil that is your pickup? No. Nope, it doesn't. It does affect a lot of, orbiting factors around guitar tone because, for example, if you were to play, and I have, an all aluminum guitar, the sustain on that guitar trumps anything made out of wood. Same with an Aristides guitar. Those things sustain way more than a regular wooden guitar, traditional wooden guitar. Are there some small EQ differences as a result of that? Yeah, of course. The aluminum guitar that I own has a lot of attack, but it's not so overtly different from a normally well-built guitar. Is it different? Yes, it is. However, beyond that, I once had an actual NASA rocket scientist explain to me why tone wood doesn't really matter from a scientific perspective as far as your pickups are concerned. Your pickups aren't even attached to the wood most of the time. They're floating in a pick guard or a ring or something like that. Disagree all you want. However, the fact is that wood was chosen for guitars back in the day, not because of some magical properties. It was because it was cheap and plentiful. That's why wood was used for guitars, because before they were made out of wood, they were made out of metal. But that became pretty sparse around World War II, so they were like, what should we do? And I'm talking about electric guitars, not acoustic guitars, obviously. But electric guitars, it doesn't really matter, sorry. Next question comes from Gibby from my Discord server. Again, link down below in the description. His question is, Fluff, do you have any guitar cleaning care tips, especially on thinner nitro finishes or satin? Satin, I like how those wear over time with playing, how they get kind of buffed out when at the rub spots and like where your pinky rubs. I love that. I love proof of my playing it. However, with nitro finishes, you don't have to do much. Just be sure to wipe it down after you've played, because the thing that really gets nitro finishes is, corrosive sweat and moisture, and you don't want to ever get the guitar wet in any way, sweat, rain, water, or otherwise. That is why you see old guitars looking so beat up, is because they were usually made out of nitro, and really just wipe down your guitars. If you have a nitro guitar after you're done playing, you'll generally be fine. News, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, again from my Discord server, asks, you got any experience with Rocktron preamps? You know what? I don't, but just saying Rocktron preamps reminds me of the 90s when you saw, like, what were some of those preamps? I remember all of them. There was a Rampage preamp. I'm talking about a rack-mounted preamp. There was the Rampage, there was the Chameleon, there was the Piranha, there was a bunch of them in the 90s, but Rocktron was the king of the preamp stuff for quite a long time. I always used to want their pedals as well as a Hush pedal. Fun fact, the guy who originally started Rocktron and the Hush was their first product, is the same guy that later founded ISP, creator of the Decimator. Think of the Hush as like precursor to the Decimator, as it were. But no, other than that, I was never I couldn't afford preamps in the 90s anyway because I was 16. But No, I used to see them all the time at, like, when I would go to see local bands or even gigging bands. You would see the Rocktron stuff everywhere. That's a pretty nostalgic feeling for me personally. Zach Seif asks, in what scenario would you be willing to tour again? Good question, Zach. Honestly, I'm asked this question all the time. I would take a cool gig if I didn't have to run the books and the numbers and be the TM and coordinate all the gear. If I could just show up and just play, yeah, sure, I'd play. If it paid all right, it doesn't have to pay insane money or anything like that. It was never really about the money. It's just about the entire experience overall. So if I wasn't in a van and I didn't have to drive and it wasn't ever my turn to drive at 4 a.m. across the Oklahoma plains, yeah, I don't know. You never know. But I don't think those opportunities are plentiful for old guys like me. Ryan Hernandez asks, any type of album that made you have to buy the vinyl? I mean, I've calmed down on the vinyl purchases only because my turntable is not set up, but all of the Mastodon stuff for me was always, I have to have it on vinyl. The Ghost records, I have to have it on vinyl. A lot of the 90s stuff that was reissued over the last 10 years or whatever, that was never necessarily on vinyl or easy to get on vinyl. Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream, Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, Stone Temple Pilots stuff. I mean, those were on vinyl, but like, you certainly didn't see them more than the CDs or tapes, especially at my age. And most of us didn't have a record player in the late 90s anyway. So a lot of the first time issues of the vinyl stuff, super, super killer. I never had a chance to have In Utero on Nirvana's In Utero on vinyl. I got that on vinyl. I got the Nevermind box set. I have a bunch of vinyl. But yeah, anything that sounds cool, yeah, I'm into it. John De La Cruz asks, how does one come up with new content? After being in the YouTube game for years, what inspires you nowadays? That's a great question, John. It's always something different. To be honest, it's difficult to be, it never feels like it used to, right? So like, just like a relationship, like this is a relationship. And as you guys likely know, a new relationship or an old relationship never ever feels like a new relationship. Now, there are ups and downs and there's all sorts of push and pull in that relationship, and you grow and it becomes something more than it ever was at the beginning. However, you'll never have that new unknown feeling, and I don't have that with YouTube. For me, it's been pretty weird seeing, like, I'll be watching a random video and then someone will refer to me as like an OG YouTuber. I'm like, that's not even, oh yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, I've been doing this 13 years. Does it get hard sometimes to make videos? Yeah, of course it does. Is there stuff I'm just like, do I hate the grind of having to put out 3 videos a week for 13 years? Yes, I do. Do I still love making the actual videos? Yes, I do. I love making videos and I love making content. I love making what I call higher-ended content now, and that's what I would say pretty much drives me. I'll get, sponsors like Sweetwater, for example. The reason why I love working with Sweetwater is because they don't actually have any input on my videos. Their policy as a company is to never ever interfere with the creative vision of the person making that video. Fun fact. I don't usually talk about this stuff, but I'm kind of off on a tangent here. But the reason why I work so much with Sweetwater is they don't tell me what to do. They just ask me, do you need anything? And I say, you know what would be cool? You know what would be cool is if I could sound treat my podcasting studio so I can make more regular videos for my channel there. And they'll go, cool, here you go. Just say it's sponsored by us and we're good. And I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. So to that end, I do very much like doing the higher level, the longer planned videos these days. I also do love video editing. I love the post-production aspect. Being in front of the camera is just kind of a caveat and something I have to do. But I do get excited about, lighting and camera angles and editing and audio and making the audio sound cool. Like that stuff still very much excites me. So yeah, I don't know. You just have to find different things as you grow as a person and an artist and as a creative to go along with the package that is making YouTube videos. Larry Riley III asks, best studio headphones for mixing and mastering. Oh man, I don't normally recommend doing the headphones thing, honestly. However, if you really have to do headphones, the Slate VSX stuff is pretty great for the money. It's like $300. Pretty good. Honestly, it's pretty good. Other headphones, if budget isn't a concern, the Audis stuff is really, really great. The Focal Clarity, really, really good as well. A lot of guys check on AirPods Pro Max, the over the ears Apple headphones. I would never mix on those. I do check on AirPods only because they're AirPods Pro 2 technically, only because that's what 90% of the people consuming your music will be listening to them on anyway. So to that end, you could go that route. But, if budget is a concern, the Slate VSX stuff, pretty damn good. Mike Bearcub asks, what is your guilty pleasure artist / band, etc. to listen to? Great question, Mike. I don't really have guilty pleasures per se. Like, I'm not ashamed to listen to stuff, but some stuff that maybe people would be surprised that I listen to is I absolutely love Frank Sinatra. I love Frank Sinatra. What a masterclass in a singer. His stuff sonically sounds incredible. I also really love old, guitar-driven jazz stuff. Tal Farlow, I actually have a bunch of his vintage vinyl. Look up Tal Farlow, guys. It's so it's shreddy jazz, big band stuff, but it's so good. I cannot play any of that stuff, but I so enjoy listening to it and having an old-fashioned while making dinner. That I absolutely love that. I love John Mayer records. I love older Katy Perry records. I love Daft Punk. I love the newest stuff I'm on is the latest Billmuri record. Unbelievable. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that I usually listen to. Protorath from my Discord server asks, any new bands have you excited? There's a couple. I've mixed a couple of records or a couple of songs for a band called Resider and Wake Me. Those two bands and The Undertaking, those three bands are awesome. There is a very young up and coming band here in Seattle called Black Ends that are not heavy at all. They are like indie. They're a 3-piece indie outfit. They're very, very good. They're getting a lot of traction. I think they're a great band. What's a bands that you guys maybe might not know? Let's look in my Apple Music. Let's see. 156 Silence. 156/Silence. So sick. Alpha Wolf is cool. Wilt Wither is cool. Settle Your Scores is cool. And Unpeople. Those are all killer bands. Check them out. And last but not least, Zane asks, what is your current favorite pickup? And follow-up question, what is your go-to guitar for inspiration? Zane, great question. It's kind of always changing. I'm a Seymour Duncan artist for the last year. Favorite pickup lately has been the Black Winter. The Black Winter and or JB, it depends on the guitar. The Black Winter for me, it is such a fantastic pickup. I like the little bit of dip in the upper mids, and I like how it's kind of a more high definition JB in its voicing. It's not super different from the JB, but it is pretty different. Follow-up question, what is your go-to guitar for inspiration? My go-to guitar for inspiration would be my original turquoise Steely Dan single pickup custom Ernie Ball Music Man Stingray RS, the one I did all the touring with, or the Blue Sparkle, its older brother. The Blue Sparkle, basically what ended up being my 2 signature models from Music Man last year. The original versions of those guitars, they're so sweated on and beat up and toured, and I've gone through so much with those guitars. It's so inspiring to pick those up. I'm just like, man, I just want to riff. I love those guitars. And that's it for this episode of FAQ Mondays. If you have your own questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. I will link to all the things I've talked about in the description. And while you're down there, feel free to click that subscribe button to further support what I'm doing. And with that, you've been wonderful. I've been Fluff. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.